A lot of people may not know this, but on Friday night, there was a gentleman in a restaurant sitting in the corner, and he didn't know that I was there. And I just happened to walk up to one Glen Suitor and ask for his autograph. Did you? I was like, he's not going to know it's me because you were heavy in conversation then when you looked up. But then we did a selfie. Glenn suggested we do a selfie, not even me. And Suits is older. He's doing selfies. It's good to be a Rider Nation. There's no free shout out, so we're not going to say where. But what did you have for dinner that night? Because I saw when the plate came out, it looked good.
I had the pork chop, and the pork chop is outstanding in this particular restaurant. Okay. and our whole table, which was TSN crew, was the chicken halas, which and that's as far as I'll go. No more hints. But Maz, you predicted it. We had to talk about the game and the game the next day and the matchups, and had a good conversation about that. And I think a lot of people, you and I both were on the same page. Dave, I'm sure you were too, but felt that the edge was. Saskatchewan had the edge. I mean, in a few different categories, but if you were to rank the 6 playoff teams going into the semifinal, I would suggest that based on the last month and a half, the Lions would be ranked 6th. Now that takes nothing away from winning a playoff game. You have to earn it. A great performance by AJ Ouellette, which is the reason they brought him into Saskatchewan to do exactly what he did in the playoff game. I mean, Sam Emilus just keeps pushing the ceiling. He was outstanding. And I was real happy for Nelson Lacombo because in the pregame show, Justin and I talked about maybe one of the keys being with Vernon Adams wanting to push the ball deep. And he loves those sort of bender routes to Justin McInnes. He wanted to get Hatcher in the seams and get Hatcher deep. That Nelson Lacombo's play would be crucial. How does he play the middle? Can he get that first interception in his career? Because he's played a lot of games now, and he was still searching for that first interception. Once you get one, the confidence just explodes, and they come in bunches. He could have had 2 in the game, one that he juggled a little bit. But that one to Hatcher was a monster play late, kind of took the last sort of gasp out of the Lions. And I just thought, good for him, because he's been playing real well in the second half of the season and just couldn't get that first one to get started. So real happy for Lacombo.
Well, Glenn, I hate to break this to you, but Chris wasn't asking for just your autograph. He actually he went ahead and he put his dinner on your room bill, so that's what the signature was for. Sorry to tell you that. But speaking of surprises, was there anything one way or the other that surprised you in that football game, good, bad, or otherwise?
Not really. It was surprised me that it took so long for Vernon Adams to start targeting Justin McInnes. It was late in the second quarter that he finally started going to him, and they ended up scoring with Justin. He had 1 touchdown in the game, as you know, but that was maybe the only one. I really believe that the matchup was the big plays from Vernon Adams, those chunk plays between 20 and 35 yards that he loves, that when he's on and those plays are happening, the Lions can play with anybody in the league. But it also was strength against strength, because the Riders' strength defensively was taking the ball away when teams attempted those type of throws. And that's where Roland Milligan came in. And as we mentioned, Nelson Lacombo. So 3 interceptions by VA, and, Sales also had 1 right there. But the end of the day, strength against strength, and the takeaways, again, won by the Riders. And when they win the takeaway, now I want to preface this, because when they win the takeaway, they win the game. You could say that about a lot of teams, but they have been the best in the business at it. Now, there was 2 teams that they lost the takeaway category to in the regular season. One was the Lions, and they exercised that demon in the semifinal, and they won it with a +2. I think it was +2, right? +2 or +3. And the other one was the Banjo Bowl in Winnipeg, where the Bombers won with a +2, and the Riders were a -2. So there's another demon to slay coming up in this West Final.
So Friday on the show, Barney and I were talking, and I had said it's playoff football, and there was a lot of talk about the big plays. And I said, special teams. Sean White is a pretty good, accurate, doesn't miss a lot field goal kicker. Flintoff, good punter, second or third best average in the league. And then Sean White ends up extra point, field goal, end up costing him points and momentum. It was all those small little plays that if they get those points and they keep the game close, and you see on a lot of those interceptions, Glenn, and I've watched no film when it comes to football. You've watched millions of hours of it. There were a lot of plays. If you were watching film, there was guys underneath open, and a VA could have been patient or maybe not forcing. There's guys that were open, but instead they were trying to force it into where the coverage was. And I thought, hopefully they don't realize this, but there's a lot of stuff that VA just keeps looking down the field, but he's not seeing what's right in front of him. And when we had Darren Bombing on, he had talked about how the Bombers' bread and butter this year, although Brady Oliveira's numbers may not be great rushing at times, it's that short 1 or 2 yard pass that is their run game that they exploit that has really helped them this year. That's what worries me this week when we start talking about the Bombers, because Zach Collaros is not afraid to go deep, but he's also not afraid to throw the short ball too.
Well, that's Brady Oliveira, and again, the finalist for outstanding player. Again, I think Roland should have got the nod, but okay, Brady Oliveira gets the nod. But it is that short game. It's an extension of the run, really, in Canadian football, where you saw Ottawa do it in the Eastern semifinal, where they weren't even really playing with a true tailback anymore. They sort of just said, you know what, we're just going to throw hitch screens and things like that to our receiver / back, and basically forget about conventional run. And I don't think for a second that the Riders would go there, but that's what, in a lot of ways, Brady can do both. You don't have to make a substitution there. So he can swing out of the backfield, catch that. I think he's first or second in the league in the regular season as a tailback catching the ball out of the backfield. So that is definitely a threat. And what does that mean defensively? Often it means you've got to play more man-to-man and put a linebacker on Brady out of the backfield. And so that he doesn't have that space to turn and get 7 or 8. You have to take him away immediately at the line of scrimmage almost. So he's swinging out of the backfield, a defensive back or a linebacker would have to jump him immediately so that Zach would automatically say, my tailback's out of the picture. I've got to throw it down the field to the curls or the ins or whatever he's got called. So, that's all strategy. We can talk more about that on Thursday, but I just think, it's such a great matchup running the ball with AJ Ouellette on one side and Brady Oliveira on the other. If you like sort of American smash mouth type football, I think you're going to see a little of that in the West Final. You're going to see two powerful backs that invite contact and also have the speed to run by tackling angles. And this example replay played on this Ouellette touchdown in the Western semifinal. That's a great example of it. Low pad level, defenders start bracing themselves for impact, and that's when he uses his quickness to run right by them.
Glenn, before I get to my question, don't forget in that Labor Day rematch, by the way, remember the Bombers blocked that punt on the first Riders' possession of the game, which doesn't factor into the turnovers. But I want you to take me inside the huddle, a CFL huddle, if you will. I had a great conversation today with Trevion Tate at Rider practice, because you'll recall when Trevor Reed went down from the left tackle spot, Tate went from right tackle to left tackle. And we were talking about how big of an adjustment that was, especially for him in game. And he says to me, well, actually, it was supposed to be Furlan that went to left tackle, but we decided in the huddle it was going to be me because I've played on the left more than he has. So I went left and he went to the right. How often does stuff like that happen in the huddle with, forget what those guys over there on the sideline say, we're doing this?
I love that story. In fact, I'm going to steal it and then use it on the air.
Trademark the sports cage.
Yes, I will. I'll try and give you credit for it. it does happen, and it happens with teams that have the leadership. It happens with teams that are trusted by their coach, and vice versa. I remember many times that either Bobby Jerson or Richie Hall and I would change plays in the defense, and often I would be, I would catch an earful from Ted Heath, our defensive coordinator, on the sideline when I came off, because he would signal in the defense. We in the huddle would decide it wasn't the right defense for what we thought we needed. And Bobby would persuade me, or Richie Hall would persuade me. And I'd say, guys, let's go with what we believe in right here in this huddle and do that. Let's just do it. Forget it. And then I'd go to the sideline and I'd say to Coach Heath, yeah, I didn't see you were kind of blocked by another player, and I it forced me into a complete lie with my coach. But we did it. I wouldn't say really often, but I would say it happened in the Grey Cup in '89, probably 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah, where we just completely changed the defense that was called from the sideline. And so, I think when you have, chemistry between your coach, and the coach trusts the players, the leaders in the group and the leaders in the huddle, and those leaders trust that, they're not betraying the process. They're basically have a feel for it. Those are the guys out there, and they're saying, hey, I'd rather play left. What do you think? And then, well, let's do it. And I'm sure Corey went, that's not kind of what we drew up, and he was fine with it when he saw the results.
Now, apparently that conversation lasted maybe 3 seconds. It was quick. So it's a 20-second play clock. So I'm assuming in your instances when you're describing it, like, there's not a lot of time to sit around and, well, if we do, like, it's got to be quick, right? Like,
yeah, no, there's no debate, and there's no it's as simple as this. Richie Hall turns and says, that man defense we called, let's play zone this time. And I give him kind of a look like, you sure? And it's all it takes, that split second look like, be right. And then he goes, because I was calling the coverages in the huddle. So as soon as he'd turn to me and say that, I'd give him that look, and then he'd give me the nod, and I'd turn and call the play. So it was basically done. And almost never, if it was a leader in the group, it wasn't if it was a young guy. If it was a young guy or a second-year guy, or guys that would want to call a play that maybe they would like, but not be best for the rest of the group, which can happen. You had to use a little judgment in there. But yeah, I think it's a great sign, guys. It really is. It's a sign that this team trusts their coaching staff. The coaching staff trusts the leaders in the huddle, and I bet you Trevor can change plays. I bet you Trevor can, take a play and say, hey, I'm going to go straight over here. Forget the read. I'm going straight. And just so Emilus knows that in this particular thing, he feels something, and let's do it. I love it. There was times I was free and could play anywhere, and I would tell one of the halfbacks, I have a feeling they're going to throw it to Alan Pitts here, and I'm going to jump it if they do. And you're on the other side, you're on your own, because I'm committing to Alan Pitts here. And that wasn't really the design of the defense, but we felt as a group, with Terry Irvin and those guys back there, all veteran players, that, we could do some of this stuff. We were out there, we could make plays. And I always said when we broke the huddle, we better be right.
Yeah. Hey, Glenn, I'm not sure, Curtis or Colson, if you want to bring it up again, the Vernon Adams Jr. press from yesterday, to hear the emotion in his voice, you feel bad for the man. But if anything, it also, too, besides when his voice starts cracking, does it not feel like the weight of the world is off his shoulders, because hopefully it's finally over and done, what he had to live through this year? We got it right here.
I was coming to hold down this team, keep us in second place, and get us a home playoff game, and that's what I did. Went 4-2 as a starter, and I felt like that was going to be the same thing this year, and it wasn't, and that really crushed me, because Rick he put the most confidence in me last year after I threw those 6 interceptions, and he kept me in. And no coach has ever gave me that much confidence. And then so, when I came back and they told me they didn't know I was getting my spot back or anything, that kind of just totally crushed me. It did. I'm not going to lie. But again, I wasn't going to be whining and complaining about it. I had to come to work every day with a smile on my face and help however I could. And I felt like I did that. And I brought good energy. And I wasn't going to bring anyone down.
See, to me, that's the most outstanding player award right there for what he went through all season.
Yeah,
And, it's taking the high road, even there where the season's over. You don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, he did a great job of that all year long, and I have nothing but respect for Vernon Adams, and Vernon Adams will help in a big way whatever team he ends up on. Here's a little sort of just a thought that when free agency hits at the end of Grey Cup, and when I say free agency, trade talks, things like that, usually teams wait till the end of Grey Cup, and Vernon's under contract, so there would have to be a trade. But I think with Bo Baldwin as a quarterback coach in Calgary, that's an interesting one for me because, I believe that, and this is not from talking to Rick Campbell after the fact, but I think this is going to be Nathan Rourke's team next year, and Vernon Adams will be moved. And if that happens, I think Calgary would be a front runner because of Bo Baldwin. Bo Baldwin worked with Vernon Adams in college. And in fact, he's the quarterback guru that worked with Bo Levi Mitchell, Matt Nichols, Michael Riley, and Vernon Adams. And he has said a long time ago in an article, he said that Vernon Adams was the best of those 4 that he coached. So I see that as
a pretty good compliment.
Yeah, and I see that as sort of a match made in heaven, really, for him to go to Calgary. Anyway, having said that, he did a great job all season, trying to just stay a pro, be ready, help Nathan Rourke when he was turned. And I think if Rick Campbell, if you asked him and he was being really honest, he did 2 years ago in 22. Nathan got hurt, and when he was healthy, he got his job back. This year, Vernon Adams got hurt. Nathan played. And when Vernon Adams was healthy again, he didn't get his job back for 3 more games. And I think if Rick Campbell could do it over again, he might have waited until Vernon was healthy and then put him in as soon as he was, see how they rolled there, and then could always go back to Nathan if Vernon Adams had one of those games. And when I say one of those games, like in his past, he's had those games where, as he mentioned in the clip, the one in Toronto where he threw 6 picks. So he's had those moments. And if he had another one, but maintain that you don't lose your job because you're hurt, if he could do it again, he'd probably do it. I haven't asked him, and I might in Grey Cup week, but I would think that would be something he'd be thinking about.
Glenn, I'm sure you went ahead and analyzed that football game after we had a chance to watch it on Saturday. Vernon Adams Jr., after the contest, told us that, he knew he had to force the ball. It was a time where he had to force the ball, and that's where the last 2 picks came from, to Lacombo and, of course, to Roland Milligan Jr. Aside from those, you take those out, was there a defining moment or defining truth, if you will, to the game and the fact that maybe the Riders were just that good, or did BC just not do enough to get the victory when you're analyzing the outcome?
No, I think the Riders were that good, and I think the Riders had that balance. I remember looking at, I think it was the halftime stats and seeing the time of possession difference and how much more that the Riders had the ball. And that didn't necessarily early in the game reflect in the score, but it did show that Trevor Harris was putting drives together and keeping possession of the football and not giving Vernon Adams more chances to sling it deep and to make those big plays down the field. So, and wearing down the defense. Plus, I'd also give it to the Riders because the balance that they brought with AJ Ouellette and the run game and how, the reason he was brought in was on display in that Eastern semifinal. So, I think all of a sudden, this is not all of a sudden, it's been that all year, but maybe hasn't got the pub that it deserves. But this receiving core now is a dangerous receiving core. And I think the Bombers took notice. If they didn't, they should. And I think the Riders can match their run game. Oliveira is the heart and soul of the Bombers offense, but I think they can be matched in a running game scenario and balance in the offense with Ouellette. I think it was the Riders earning it. I will also say, though, and again, this takes nothing away from Saskatchewan, that of the 6 ranked team, if you ranked them based on the last month and a half, the BC Lions would have been ranked 6th of the playoff teams.
All righty, we'll wrap it here. Glenn joins us every Tuesday and Thursday, right after 5 o'clock Thursday with Barney. We'll get into the weekend games and we'll break down what we think Montreal, Toronto, and then Saskatchewan, Winnipeg.
Glenn, can you let me in on where you're going to be this weekend? I want an autograph.
Yeah, all right. I'm going right now to check my Amex. You guys got a scam going on. That's pretty good.
TSN's got a lot of money. Hey, listen, the kids wanted to go to Palm Springs. That's Glen Suitor for Quality Tire. If you missed any of Glen's visit here today, you can always check out the podcast for Glen or any of our guests. All you need to do is go to our website, sportscage.com.